Dr. Kennedy Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I listened with considerable interest to what the Minister has just said by way of explanation, and I have to say that with respect, he has not persuaded me in any way at all. I have to say that I think in my year and a half in Parliament, in the 49th session, the 49th Parliament, this is the most serious attack on constitutional rights that I have experienced. This Parliament has adopted 114 acts reflecting government legislation. 114 acts, and yes, I concede they have been busy, and I pay tribute to the hard work that goes into that. I do think it's important, while we're on this semi-jocular note, that we don't denigrate the dignity of this discussion by introducing ad hominem, endless, interminable ad hominem arguments between whether the previous Attorney General was or was not a lawyer, because that is a red herring, and this issue is far too important to try to politicise it and get red herrings going. Sir, the 114 acts that have been adopted have basically reflected two main themes of this government. One, to be tough on crime, and two, to cut government spending. The public has voted in its wisdom in 2008. That reflects the themes and the priorities of this government. Sir, this piece of legislation stands alone in iniquity in its attack on constitutional rights. Section 9(1) of the Court's Remote Participation Bill attacks the basic constitutional right of New Zealanders to be present at one's trial. We can look at the historical sweep of constitutional guarantees that underpin this nation's democracy, inherited from England and honed by our own New Zealand distinctive experience. We go back to the 1688, the Bill of Rights, and its political rights that were enshrined and now in New Zealand law. Representation before taxation, the election of the Sovereign Assembly, which is this, freedom of speech. We signed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 6, recognition of the person in law. 7, equality of the person before the law. Article 8, effective remedy against violation of constitutional rights. Article 10, fair trial, particularly in criminal trials. Article 11, presumption of innocence. They have been translated into New Zealand domestic law. 1961, the New Zealand Crimes Act. Section 354 gives the right to defence either by the person or through counsel. Section 376(1), the right to be present at a trial. That latter one is translated into the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act, 1990, Section 25E, which has already been identified tonight and last night, the right to be present at a trial. It is a question of the interpretation of the right to be present. The Minister last night chose to define effective participation as the right to be present, effective through audiovisual links. With respect, Mr. Chairman, we fundamentally disagree with that. The right is an unsullied right to be physically present. There is no question in jurisprudential history that that is the correct interpretation in common law tradition. Section 9(1) strips away that right. It places it in the hands of the judiciary. It takes it out of the inherent absolute right, and I understand the meaning of the word absolute, and we have researched it. It is a difference between an absolute right and the absolute execution of a right. And there is an absolute right. We touched on this with Simon Bridges last night. Simon Bridges, in the second reading last night, spoke about the air of unreality that the opposition parties were bringing to bear on this. There were, he said, trials where there had been defendants in absentia, he thought. I challenge Mr. Bridges, I challenge the Minister, I challenge every member of this Parliament, including every government member, to identify the trials in New Zealand over the last 50 years, criminal trials that have been conducted in absentia. Let us find them. Let us identify them, Mr. Chair. Let us identify the trials, the criminal trials, where the accused has been in absentia in New Zealand over the last half-century. The government, if anybody is being unrealistic here, in an air of unreality, it is the government. It is as if the government has been bitten by the tsetse fly, and we have a form of sleeping sickness here, where the government is urging the New Zealand citizenry to sleepwalk its way into a surrender of a basic constitutional right to be present in one's own trial. The second point Mr. Bridges made last night was that the right was not absolute. The Minister has reiterated that. If that is the case, what's the point of 9.1? The chairman of the committee last night explicitly conceded that there was a surrender of a right. What is the surrender of the right? And the Minister reiterated it. We are surrendering something here, sir. So let us define what it is that we are surrendering. We are surrendering the right to be physically present in a criminal trial if you are the accused. Now, the Minister just a moment ago spoke about the incredibly high, don't worry, New Zealand citizens, the incredibly high threshold that is being brought in to the judiciary and the registrar in making a determination. Yes, it is a negative presumption. I understand. I can read the Article 9.1. I know about negative presumptions instead of positive presumptions. You introduce a negative presumption, you have ceded the absolute right. If you have an absolute guarantee, it is 100%. What the Minister is proposing is that we cede that 100% guarantee and we introduce a 99% confidence level that the judiciary will do what it's meant to. 1% chance that something will go wrong. I won't accept that 1% chance, Minister, and I recommend that you do not too. Let us reflect on this. What is it that is driving this government on this particular point? Do they recognise the magnitude of what they're doing and therefore they're trying to run it through? Or are they just oblivious to the magnitude of what we're doing here tonight? What is driving this government? Is it a motivation on saving? What's the substantive motivation? It is cost saving, we are told. Efficiency, savings, a commercial price on a jurisprudential principle. And I think there is a danger that it is turning into stubbornness. Let us just diminish the level of tension a little, because we might be making a very egregious mistake tonight if we proceed precipitously. Let us think about deferring this matter for a moment. What is driving the government on procedure that prompts it to bring in the committee the day after the second reading at no notice? It was not on the order paper. I was in the Business Committee on Tuesday. It was not on the order paper. It came in overnight. Why? Sir, I do think that we need to reflect very carefully. We in the Green Party, and I dare say other opposition parties, had indicated a readiness to support positively the introduction of AV into the court system. No problem. But not at the expense of this constitutional right.
Simon